We are told that a long time ago there lived 4 masters who fought for the title of the strongest in the world. The first of them was a guy with long black hair who was holding a sword in his hands. The second was a beefy man who most likely fought with his fists. The third was a white-haired woman who used magic. And the fourth was an elderly man who used a sword. And in those days there was a cult of a bloody demon who sought to dominate the mortal world. And in order to achieve his goal, he set a trap for the masters. The climax of these frame-ups was that this cult grabbed the son of the fourth hero and provoked him to put his sword on the floor so that his son would be spared. After which the villain grinned at this and all 4 masters were imprisoned in an underground prison. We are shown the cult of the bloody demon, or rather an underground dungeon where 2 villains grin and say that now they need to learn their martial arts, and the second agrees with him. One of the cult asks the second if it's okay if he acts in his own way. In response to this, the second villain agrees and asks if 10 years is enough. The guy agrees and says that he will not let his boss down, but in response he only receives that trust has been placed in him, because he is the best in the academy. After which the boy turns to the hero and asks them if they heard everything that they discussed and that now they are his teachers and will have to teach him special martial arts. In response to this, the swordsman became very angry, calling it nonsense and saying that they would kill the boy. And the cultists thought that apparently the heroes did not want to leave this place. After which the second swordsman introduced to us asks the guy how dare he, and that they will not fall for the cultists' tricks just like that. In response to this, the guy asks the heroes that do they really think that the demonic strategist will leave him, who has studied all these martial arts, alive, which makes the swordsman surprised. The cultist continues saying that there is no chance, and that the reason he took on all this is that his body cannot use the breathing circulation technique, and even so, no one will be left alive in any case. As a result, the guy offered the swordsman a deal and, after some thought, they agreed. After this we see a man bleeding. And this guy begins to think that everything is happening as he thought from the very beginning, that the person who wounded him was going to get rid of everyone. And the guy's opponent said that he would be honest and that he never had trust in him, and this is the reason that a bunch of garbage had gathered behind him that should have died a long time ago. This pile of so-called garbage were the 4 legendary swordsmen, the king of the green forest, the ice moon goddess, the lightning demon and the sword lord. Continuing, the enemy said that he was well aware of the physical condition and that even if the guy studied their martial arts, it was still temporary. And to summarize, the cult told the guy to stop bluffing and finally die, and the fact that he would use those skills that would remain after him, which put the swordsman into a stupor. After this, the guy began to be indignant within himself and muttered under his breath that he should use it for now. Maybe, sometimes you have to give it your all in order to feel at least a little more confident. This perplexed the enemy. The guy continued to think that clearly, this only means that the strategy of the demonic cult is not so strong, and that it goes without saying that people are ready for anything first to suffer from chi deviations. The warrior with a grin on his face said that it was nothing and not to take it into his head. Continuing, the swordsman said that he didn't understand something and that he had studied not 4 martial arts, but 5, and the next moment the swordsman was already inflamed with a red aura. And the next moment, the hero accumulated such strength that his hair turned red, which shocked his opponent. He could not believe his eyes, believing that this was impossible, and that this feeling would only mark one thing, that this is a martial art that defies the heavens. And it turned out to be a divine art that only the founders could use, although it was unfinished. And the guy said that he would not wag his tongue and rushed into battle. Thinking, the hero said that until the bloody demon comes out of seclusion, he is invincible, and he rushed into battle with great speed along with the 4 legendary swordsmen. And so the king of the green forest takes out one of the rivals with one blow and shouts that he will not allow anyone to escape. And the battle continued, although the 5 swordsmen were outnumbered. The lightning-fast demon said that today the divine bloody cult would be wiped off the face of the earth, and with deft movements he scattered 4 enemies, and suddenly an enemy jumped out from behind him with a cry of die. But this was not part of the plans of the ice moon goddess, and she used magic and froze the bandit completely. The lightning demon only turned around with a smile. But even this was not enough, because dozens of enemies again rushed into battle against the heroes. And so we see how the Lord of the Sword deals with the next bandits. And they only groan in pain, and the king of the green forest told his subordinate that if you want to live, move. The cult stood and was surprised, not understanding what was happening, and did not see where the hero had gone. But the next moment, a swordsman appeared right next to the bandit, asking if the cultist was looking for him. And the boy dealt a lightning blow to the face. The hero asked with a grin whether his greeting was too harsh, when suddenly some light appeared behind the bandy and the guy was very surprised. It turned out to be the bloody demon, and the swordsman was at a loss that he really came in person. You can see how the impacts shake throughout the entire area, and we are told that on that day they all died because the explosions in the place were terrible. And now we are transported to some bright and warm day at school. And some child ran out of school and started shouting at the teacher so that he wouldn't be in the clouds, and the man was only perplexed and asked what happened. And the child said that all the children were asking when the teacher would deign to come and that they were all gathered at the academy. The man was lazy and he said that everyone should just engage in self-education, or, for example, play with a ball, and at the same moment he threw the ball in the child's face. But the boy insisted on his own, and he said that if the man continued to do this, then he would complain about him to the main teacher, which angered the teacher. After much persuasion, the guy got up from the sunbed and said that he would come now, and the child was delighted and asked to hurry up. To which the man did not understand why he was drawn to him so much, and the boy just shouted that every hour is priceless. This teacher turned out to be a hero, and we are told that almost a month ago he woke up in the body of a martial arts master in a remote village. The owner of this body was called Baek Suren, and he was born with a rare defect. They say that because of this, from the very birth he was in situations between life and death many times, and his mother was in poor health and died a couple of years after the birth of the child. And his father tried to save his son and turned to many doctors to find a cure for the boy, but everything was to no avail, and in the end, for the sake of his sick son, he founded the academy in a remote village, where there was clean air and water. And the children who studied were delighted with their teacher. And so his son studied martial arts every day, even though his skills were not complete, and they say that the guy also looked for any ways to cure his illness. As a result, he studied demonic martial arts and, having spent too much energy, fainted. But in fact, he died, and instead of living forever giving up his dream, he would rather try to find a cure or die trying, and as it turned out, he knew that he would die. Later, the hero woke up in this body and a whole month passed. The guy exhausted the children, they ate, moved and screamed for someone to save them and that they wanted to go home, and the swordsman just looked at them with a grin. Judging by rumors, the cult of the bloody demon was destroyed a couple of decades ago. We are transferred to a school building where the hero communicates with some man. The man asks the guy if he wants to say something. The swordsman, while devouring food, said that it is clear to anyone that to study martial arts you need to undergo rigorous training. And that this way time, money and determination will not be wasted. Yes, and it's better for them to bring good silk and hand it over. In response to this, he became furious and hit the hero on the head, shouting that he was an asshole. Continuing, the man shouted that the hero orders children who are not yet 10 to do hard exercises for hours, and is it really necessary to thank him now, and where else in the world can there be a teacher who forces children to train so hard? And the swordsman lay there and realized that he had foreseen everything but simply could not come back from his blow. I continue, the guy said that this is what he did every day in the cult of the bloody demon, and he realized that these days the children are very weak, and the director asked if the guy was listening to him. To which the hero replied that he spoke in his head. In order to study martial arts one must be ready to selflessly sacrifice one's bones and flesh, and one also needs perseverance for strength. The director began to shout that the swordsman was a scoundrel and that he didn't even understand what kind of place this was, but then a boy interrupted them. The head of the academy was surprised and asked the guy what happened. And the boy, crying, asked to save his brother, which threw the teachers into a stupor. The worried man asked the head to save his son. And the director wanted to look at him and asked what happened to him. The hero stood and watched this, thinking that this was a wound caused by martial arts, after which the director gave his answer that the child had broken bones but his insides were not badly damaged and that it was not fatal. And that he would provide first aid and leave him to spend the night here, and asked the father of the child should send him to the doctor tomorrow for a full examination. The father was very grateful when he heard these words, and the child, through tears, asked the main teacher if his brother would not die and if he would be okay, to which the director replied not to worry and that he would be okay as soon as he rested. He hugged the child and his face changed to an angry one. He didn't understand who could do this and the fact that he was trying to finish the examination, but the hero was draining an indefinable aura and what he thought about it before and the fact that this was clearly not an ordinary person. The tired father said that his child got hurt when he was playing with friends, but the director denied this by saying that he doesn't really want to say this, but his son is one of the strongest among his peers and what hurt his son is not what the director taught him. The father did not know what to answer to this, but the victim's younger brother shouted that the people from the Jin Academy were to blame for everything and that they were the first to attack his brother and did not care about the teachings of the Beck Academy, saying that they teach weak martial arts there. The teachers were surprised that how could this be the Jin Academy and whether this was the same academy that was located in the neighboring village a few months ago. The head also said that he heard that this academy belongs to relatives of the Namgun clan, which surprised the hero. After all, if they are relatives, then why build the academy in such a remote place and that it is very suspicious? The swordsman decided to find out how many people attacked the victim, and the child said that he was only one. The teachers were very surprised, and the boy continued by saying that it was on the sly and he knew all their techniques. The hero was surprised by these words and realized that it was a guy who had previously studied here. But this still made the swordsman perplexed as to how it could be done alone, because the boy was very injured, his back was bandaged and there were bruises on his stomach. And having a better look at the wounds, the hero realized that the boy's opponent used a deadly technique and that it was very cruel. The younger brother began to shout to the head teacher that they should go to Gym Academy and punish the criminal, to which the director replied that he would punish him and that he needed to go meet the head of Gym Academy. The father wanted to dissuade the director by saying that this happens when children fight and that it is enough for him that his son is okay. But the head said that the father should not worry and that they would just talk strictly to him, and the hero thought that this would not end well. After this, the director sent the people home, saying that it was late and it was time to go, and that he would send the victim home tomorrow, for which he received gratitude. And the next day it turned out that the ominous premonition was true. The teachers came to the Jin Academy and started shouting if there was anyone here and that they came from the Back family. At this noise, some huge man with a scar on his face came out and asked what the noise was all about early in the morning. The director greeted the man and said that they had come to meet with the head of the Jin Academy, and the hero was scared and thought that this guy looked like some kind of bandit and he was not really a relative of the Namgung clan. 2. And so he turned to the huge man that last night a student of their academy received serious injuries in a fight with a student of the Jin Academy, but in response he received only indifference and the fact that there was no need to pay so much attention because of some childish fight, which definitely strained the teachers. The hero stood completely shocked, and Re-Jean smiled and said that boys grow through fights and pain, or was he going to raise the victim like a girl? Suddenly changed his face and said that he does not teach his students to harm others and however, he is not sure about Jean's school. After which the director turned to the guy who beat his ward child and asked if he knew that he almost killed his friend last night. After that, Jean turned with anger towards the child, but the boy only replied that it was a fair fight. The director again changed his face and asked if the boy was sure of his words. But Re-Jean decided to shout to wait for you and what the director allows himself to do and what he does with their student. Continuing, the huge man asked the director that he really thought that the fight was unfair, and maybe he should have taught his students to be stronger, and how dare he even come to someone else's academy and raise everyone's ears because some guy was beaten. The hero wanted to express his opinion, but Director Jean interrupted him and said that it seems that the one who taught him himself is not so good in martial arts and it is not surprising that his student eventually lost, which greatly surprised the teachers. The swordsman was very surprised and realized that most likely there would be a fight and that it was all a setup, and the children were only waiting for this moment with cheerful faces. The hero began to sweat and he told Director Jean that he was counting on this, so he ordered the boys to fight each other. Continuing to think, the swordsman thought that if his father stumbles, rumors will spread that he is a coward, and students will begin to leave their academy. And that's why they stand behind the head of the Jin Academy. Even if the hero challenges him to a duel, it will look like he is trying to blame the kids for fighting, and no matter what choice he makes, nothing good will come of it. Jean continues to smile, but then some old man interrupts him and everyone begins to worship him, saying that this is the elder. And so the elderly man decided to say his words that apparently the teachers are not aware that this is Namgung, and he is the fourth cousin of the king of the heavenly sword Namgung Jihak, the best master of the Chongmya school, and this means that he is related by blood to the great clan. The huge man just smiled and said that there was nothing special here, and that he was simply trying not to disgrace the name of the clan, and the hero only thought that he was giving his hand to be cut off and that this fool had nothing to do with this clan at all. The teachers stood in shock and a rage broke out around them from the students and staff of Jin's school. The swordsman only continued to think about what was to be expected, and the problem is that the followers of the academy believe in this lie and that after all he must intervene. And so the hero comes out from behind the director with a smile and says that this is incredible, which makes Director Jin surprised. Continuing, the guy says that it turns out that the martial arts that he teaches to the local students are the same as in the Namgun clan. The huge man replies that it is, and naturally they do not directly teach the main techniques, but to summarize, yes, they follow the teachings of the clan. And the hero in response says that apparently he is an amazing master, after all, he brought the boy's skills to such a level in such a short time. Director Jin began to laugh and say that the swordsman had a good eye, and that he could teach him if he wanted. And after that, a commotion begins on the school grounds. Everyone is shouting that this is what was expected from the Namgun clan, and to think that such an academy would end up in their village. The principal of the victim's school just stood there in amazement, and the hero turned around and winked at him. The swordsman continued to speak, and this shocked Director Jin, because he said that he did not even suspect that the martial arts of the Namgun clan would exude such a thirst for killing. And that because of such a dense deadly aura, he thought that it was an evil sect of martial artists. Everyone around was surprised, they just didn't know what to even answer. And the children just shouted out in fear that there was an evil sect of martial artists, and that this couldn't happen. And the hero only thought with a grin that he had succeeded and that the atmosphere immediately changed. The swordsman decided to explain what he meant and said that the dirtier the technique, the easier it is to learn it. At which the huge man got very angry and told the hero to watch his language, and the boy just stood up in bewilderment and asked what was wrong with his face, as if they wanted to take up the shovel again. Director Jin was very angry, but the hero stood with a calm face and he telepathically felt that the director of his academy was addressing him. He understood from the director's face that he was at a loss and that he did not understand at all what arts of the evil sect the swordsman was talking about. But the hero, with the same calm face, turned to the director and said that everything would be fine now and that he should wait, and continuing to speak, he turned to Jin's school and that if they had any doubts, they could make sure, and asked the others how everyone looked at it. And the swordsman continued to say with a smile that since the incredible Gun OK from the Namgun clan opened the doors of his academy here, they should contact the Namgun clan and ask them to send congratulations on the opening. This surprised the huge man, but the hero continued, and that in addition, it would be great if they could prove that the guys did not study the martial arts of the evil sect. Director Jin was completely furious. He ordered the swordsman to shut his filthy mouth and that he should not show off, otherwise he would die. However, a commotion arose around the academy. Everyone there couldn't believe that this guy was really a deceiver, and was it really true that the academy was a fake? However, this monologue was interrupted by the elder. He turned to the hero, asking him if he was ready to take responsibility for these words, but the swordsman only grinned and asked what exactly was meant by responsibility. And the old man with a sly face said that they do not teach evil martial arts under the guise of the Namgun family, and if the boy claims something so reckless without any evidence, he must understand what may await him in the future. The elder continued saying that the teachers should realize how dangerous what they are trying to do now is, and that the evil martial arts sect are reckless words, and that the Namgun clan will not just let their name be smeared because of some rumors, and that it seems that today both sides got too emotional. Summing up, the grandfather said that since the teachers dared to recklessly cause such damage with their words, how about keeping silent about today's incident and discussing everything in a different setting? And after these words, the elderly man bowed. However, the hero thought about these words, because he had trained in the evil martial arts sect for 10 years and that this was a complete lie. And so the swordsman decided to express his thoughts. He said no, and how dare the master of the evil martial arts sect use such dirty tricks? Grandfather tried to object. However, the hero said that he would not hide in fear from the words of the head of Jin. After that, the elder didn't even know what to say, and the swordsman continued by saying that their behavior when they are angry and the tension on the faces of their students only confirms the words of the swordsman. And so the boy decided to find out which group Jin's school belonged to, so looking at them the hero became curious that they really seriously wanted to gain control over this region by posing as an academy in a village. And after that, the elder could not hold back his laughter. it was as if demonic eyes appeared on him and he simply laughed so loudly that some people were worried about their ears and did not understand what it was. What kind of wind was this? The hero was delighted. After all, finally this grandfather showed his true identity. However, his face changed sharply. After all, a couple of wounds appeared on his shoulder. And the legendary swordsman uttered only a few words, that this grandfather could become a first-class master, and is that all? However, the students who were on the school grounds began to notice that the elder's body was changing, and it was indeed so that he received the image of a pumped-up middle-aged man. After this, the elder turned to the hero, saying that he was an arrogant bastard and that he recognized the guy's reflexes. Continuing, the grandfather said that he wanted to see how long the swordsman could behave like this. And the students all stood in fear, saying that the atmosphere had become strange and that they had better leave here. However, the elder turned on them and hit them hard on the ground and said that from now on, anyone who takes even a step will be killed. The students tried to escape from the academy, but 5 men blocked their way. The children continued to shout that they had not seen anything and that they would not say anything, and the hero stood with a dissatisfied face when he saw this. But suddenly the swordsman turned to the elder with a smile and asked if he was seriously planning to kill these children. In response to this, the grandfather said with a smile that no one could stop him if something happened. The hero seriously tensed after these words. He did not believe that the elder was saying this seriously, and how could these innocent people be killed? The next moment, the academy director stopped the swordsman. Having said that it looks like he no longer needs to show respect and that the hero should not interfere in this fight. After that, he took out his blade and pointed it at his grandfather. 3. The director asked the hero to leave, saying that he was great, but he wouldn't be able to help in battle. The swordsman tried to object, but decided to just watch, because the head said that now he would take care of them. And so the huge man rushed at the director with a scream and said that he should not look away during the fight. However, the director blocked that blow with a fairly light movement and jumped away from the head of Jean to a far distance. The teachers were shocked by the action, and Jean only jumped and shouted that the real fight would begin now and struck another blow at the director. However, this blow was parried. And he shouted to the hero to run and that he could not fight him. The swordsman stood in thought, because he couldn't give himself away, and he thought that the director was worried about him, and that it was better to finish this quickly, and after that the hero stood in a pose that intended to attack. However, he was interrupted by a strong elder. He told the swordsman that he wanted to check how good the hero was in battle and whether he was as good as in words and with laughter. The grandfather rushed into battle, and the next moment he found himself right behind the boy's back. The hero dodged the attack with a deft movement, and the grandfather only laughingly said that it was as if the leader had gotten under his tail, and continued to strike blow after blow at the swordsman. However, the guy easily dodged each blow and thought that the elder was moving slowly, and that it was obvious that he was being underestimated. The hero grinned, but the grandfather did not want to stop and shouted that the guy should not be afraid, and that he would kill him as soon as he enjoyed this fight. And the swordsman saw the open area of the elder's body and, thinking with his brain that he was completely open, delivered a stunning blow. It pierced the entire body of the elder and he flew 10 meters away. The grandfather with a terrifying face grabbed his chest and began to rest from such a blow, and the hero just grinned and silently waited for the next attack. The elder became furious and began to shout at the hero that he was a brute and that the grandfather would not fall for this twice. And after that, coins flew at him right on his head, and the swordsman jumped up behind him and said that this was not the first time this body had survived without internal energy, which made the grandfather surprised. The elderly man did not understand what kind of nonsense this guy was talking about. However, he could not hit him. All the blows were useless against the hero. And the swordsman only thought that this, of course, was expected, but this grandfather has a strong body and it can withstand all attacks, and the fact that with such strength he only needs a second to paralyze all his arms. And so the guy decided that he could win if he found the right moment, and struck with monstrous force right at the grandfather's spine, so hard that he actually writhed in pain. But the next second the hero appeared right in front of the elder and grabbed his head. The grandfather was very surprised, but the guy could not be stopped. He said that he was sorry to win with just one blow, and after that he delivered a direct blow with his knee right to the nose. The elder tried to stop him, but there was no chance. After these 2 blows, the hero jumped away from his grandfather and calmly stood on the ground. And the elder got very angry and continued to insult the guy. Hellish pain illuminated the grandfather's body and he could not do anything about it. However, he muttered that this was not all. The hero decided to ask how his opponent was feeling, but almost received a direct attack. And thinking, the guy realized that the elder was now protecting open spaces with internal energy. Grandfather continued to be angry and said that he would kill the hero, and the swordsman only thought that the enemy's meridians were blocked. The grandfather continued to rush at the hero, however, he easily dodged all the blows and spurred him on with the words that only a fool would not come back from this and that there were plenty of people like the grandfather, which infuriated the elderly man. The elder's face already resembled a punching bag. The boy was only thinking that some of his students treated him with disdain, and that other mentors did the same, and that's because he couldn't concentrate his breathing and use his internal energy. The battle continued, but the hero had time to think during this battle. And he thought that it didn't matter who had mastered the techniques that use internal energy, and the fact that the rest were arrogant and began to ignore him, and the fact that they think that only the normal ones are better than the hero. But at the same moment the boy delivers a stunning blow to the enemy's face. The elder, fighting and receiving countless blows, only shouted for the guy to die. However, the swordsman got tired of this and he moved behind his opponent and said that he would show how it was done and struck the enemy right on the back of the head and the grandfather collapsed to the ground. Finally, the hero was able to exhale, and after that he realized that he had overexerted himself, that he needed to fix it. However, at that moment, an elder appeared behind him, who calmly stood up after the murderous attack and shouted that the boy was about to die. The swordsman realized that he did not have time and would most likely receive severe damage. However, the director helped the guy by cutting off his grandfather's hand. The head, worriedly, asked the boy if everything was okay, and the hero replied that as far as possible. After that, the guy saw Jin's head lying on the ground without his hind legs and was a little upset realizing that, as he thought, the director was a first-class martial artist. However, the hero did not understand why his father was hiding his skills. After that, the swordsman decided to turn to his father, saying that it seemed that everything was over and since they had heard their confession in the presence of so many witnesses, if they were given to the Murim Alliance, they would deal with them. And the next moment, all the people who were watching this cried out with joy, that the villains were defeated and that hooray for the teachers. They were very happy that the teachers saved them and said that the PEC mentor was the best. The director turned to the hero saying that they would have a lot to discuss when they returned to the academy. But the next moment the swordsman fell without his hind legs and he realized that this body was very weak, and only said that he would sleep a little. The father was in bewilderment, and the swordsman only chattered some nonsense and that he entrusted the rest to the director. And just like that, several days passed after the incident at the Chin Academy. The hero was still resting, and the children were whining that the training was so hard and that they wanted to see their mother. And when they saw that the mentor had fallen asleep, they decided to run away. And the guy responded to them, saying that he heard everything. And so one of the children turns to his peers saying that they really can't stand it, and that if they behave like this, they will never become as strong as their mentor. This made the hero smile and he agreed with these words. Two of the children actually didn't think their mentor was that strong, and the fact that he looks, to be honest, weak was what threw the swordsman into a stupor. But the boy who defended the hero said that he was incredibly strong and that he defeated the demonic sect in a second. Continuing, the child said that the swordsman is actually a mentor and a martial artist and that when he waves his hand, the wind appears, and when he pushes with his feet, the earth explodes, and after these words the children stood in a stupor. Continuing to fantasize, the boy said that he could split a boulder with an unfashionable blow, and could also fly. And the hero just lay there in shock because the boy was greatly exaggerating everything and the fact that he had no internal energy and that he couldn't even do Qigong, but the children were delighted. The child did not want to stop and said that the mentor was secretly probably the most powerful master of all martial arts. The other two children were very surprised and asked if this was true. And the boy continued to say that yes, and that the mentor probably knows the most powerful techniques in all of Murim and that if they wait, they will be taught everything. And the hero was glad that he at least guessed it. Continuing to think, the swordsman thought that this was true, and that he knew the 5 strongest martial arts techniques in Murim, and that of course he did not plan to teach them. After all, the hero will first need to learn them himself in this body. And after that, if there is a chance, he will find successors and train them in whatever they want, but first it would be nice to find suitable candidates. But if he doesn't find it, then so be it. The children continued to admire their master, and in response they heard why all of a sudden there was such noise during training, and I'm not the kind of bastard you are playing with. The children were frightened, and the hero only thought that he did not beat them and did not force them to starve for their misdeeds, and that he would not be kicked out and the title of mentor would not be taken away for his mistakes. After that, the swordsman asked the children to try harder because this is a village where the air and water are clean and the smell of blood does not linger here. And the hero could not even think that children could learn martial arts so easily. And that he envies them. And so the hero wanted to leave, but his father stopped him, saying that today's lesson would have to be completed. It was the director of the academy. The swordsman only asked in bewilderment that something had really happened. And in response I heard that a man from the Muram Alliance had arrived. We are transferred to the academy building where a middle-aged man stands, who is a member of the Muram Alliance. The director greets his guest in response and says what she has heard about him. And the hero only silently worships and examines the guest. A conversation begins between the two parties, and the director says that unfortunately he is not skilled enough in martial arts to have a title. And the swordsman, wondering why his father is so nervous, says that he is the director's son and he also doesn't understand martial arts, so he doesn't have a title either. What causes aggression in his father? But in response, the guest asks the teachers to be indiscreet and that they didn't expose and defeat the demonic sect in battle and that they will be better than the guests themselves. And the director began to sweat and he didn't know how to respond to such a compliment and said that they were just lucky. And suddenly a member of the alliance decided to find out if they had met with the director before, which plunged the head into a stupor and he began to stutter, saying that who knows and that he has a weak memory, but he does not think that this happened. To sum it up, the guest asked if they could bring him some water? Because the journey turned out to be long, and the hero's father replied that he forced them to stand on the threshold and for them to go inside. Even though their academy is modest, they have tea, which made the members of the alliance very happy. After that, the man changed his face and ordered his subjects to go to the basement and deal with the criminals, and he would discuss something with the teachers and come. And the next second, the loyal members of the alliance, like real ninjas, fled. This threw the hero into a stupor because the guest's face again changed to a kind one and the swordsman thought that something was wrong here. The guest and teachers went to the table and a member of the alliance began to praise the tea, saying that it was very tasty, and that in fact it was not a secret that could be told to anyone. But these intruders might be part of the blood demon sect. The hero choked on his tea when he heard about it. He didn't understand why their guest mentioned the blood demon sect, and so the director asks if it didn't disappear several decades ago. In response to this, a member of the alliance says that everything is correct and several decades ago the blood demon sect split due to internal strife and the fact that the leader of the alliance seized the moment and dealt with the sect. The swordsman began to think about the fact that he also knows something about the collapse of the blood demon sect, but from this conversation he will be able to understand what happened after his death in his past life. And if it's a matter of internal disagreements, then it all started after his death and the deaths of 4 great masters, although only he knows about it. The hero continued to sit in thought, and the guest continued to say that they recently discovered activity among those who are considered to be members of the blood demon sect, which plunged the director into a stupor, and he decided to ask if this means that the sect can be revived. The alliance member remained silent and the next moment the swordsman looked on top of himself in shock. Well, the guest continued to say that this is not necessarily the case and that this is only a possibility. And the boy sat in shock because he was afraid of the look of a member of the alliance. The man decided to ask the teachers if they had heard anything else besides what the criminals told them. To which he received an unequivocal answer from father and son that they did not hear anything, and after they left them in the basement they did not even talk to them, and the guest accepted this with calm. The alliance member concluded that one way or another, lately the Muram has been keeping an eye on the actions of demonic sects, and if the academy discovers something that needs to be reported, then he will be grateful if he receives a letter, and for this case they will receive a reward from the alliance. And the director only said that they did not need any awards and they did not do it out of self-interest. The hero continued to wonder what it was, and judging by the look of the guest when he observed their reaction, although he does not seem relaxed, he is at the ready because his hands are always positioned so that he can draw a sword on you at any moment, and his legs are tense in readiness for Qigong. And why does he suspect them? The swordsman continued to be perplexed, thinking that the unknown village academy had captured a master in a demonic sect because they realized that they were teaching children demonic techniques. But after that, the boy exhaled and thought that it was most likely because of his old man, because he behaves very suspiciously, and because of this the guest is sure that they are hiding something. The Alliance member began to leave, but suddenly he stopped and said that the voice of Mr. PC, and when he heard it, it seemed very familiar to him. And the director just laughed nervously and said that he had the most ordinary hair, which threw the guest into a stupor. And the hero didn't understand why the Alliance member was so wary. Does he really think that they are leaving the Blood Demon sect? The swordsman remembered with fear this look from their guest and thought that this aura of intimidation was so strong that it was hard to even breathe, and that he had not felt such anxiety for a long time. And from such experiences the guy's fists clenched with all his might. And the member of the Alliance stood thoughtfully and tried to remember where he had seen this face before, but it seemed to dawn on him, and he said that he knew where he had seen it. And the director only said that he had finally been caught, and his son stood in complete bewilderment. When suddenly the guest pulled out his sword and rushed to attack the head with a cry that he knew that they knew each other, and the master very calmly repelled the attack, and they both smiled at each other. The hero was shocked by what was happening. He was worried about his father and didn't know how to help him, and the guest only said that he kept wondering who it was, and called the director handsome, and he replied that they had not seen each other for a long time. And the swordsman just stood there in bewilderment at these words. What a handsome guy! What's going on here? As it turned out, the member of the Alliance and the Academy were old friends. And the guest decided to ask how much time had passed, and the director said that about 30 years, and that he did not think that they would meet here in such roles. A member of the Alliance asked the head if he recognized him right away, and if so, then why did he pretend? To which the director replied that he left the school in a hurry and had not contacted him for a long time, and it seemed indecent to him to behave as if they were old friends. To which the guest replied, so that this doesn't happen again, and it means something indecent if they are old friends, and if the director talks like that, he will be upset. The academy director apologized for this and asked the hero to bring him a drink. And after that, the acquaintance happened again. The director began to explain to his son that this man was like a brother to him during their studies, and the guest only said that the hero is tall and handsome. There is no doubt that this is the director's son. The swordsman was at a loss and wanted to say that he was almost 50 years old and that this old nickname was a little strange, but the guest continued to laugh and say that if someone at their school did not know the handsome man, it meant he was sent as a spy. The hero thought that it was good that there was no fight. And after that, he introduced himself to the guest that his name was Baek Suryeong, and the member of the Alliance only told him to move to a more comfortable seat and to drink wine with them. After this, the boy listened to the whole story about their school life, which took place more than 30 years ago. The guest was constantly laughing and the father looked very tense. But this whole situation raised doubts in the swordsman. He thought about the 5 great academies and the fact that in his time there was only the Celestial Academy. And how could everything change so much? And the guy's stream of thoughts was interrupted by the guest. He continued to tell old stories and decided to talk about how many hearts his father broke during his school days. The head tried to stop his old friend, but he wouldn't shut up and said that he was still just as handsome and asked him to imagine how handsome he had to be to get the nickname handsome. The hero decided to provoke his father and said that it was really because of this that he did not say that he did not have a title, because he was shy. Although, on the other hand, this is really a shameful nickname, especially when he is almost 50. Well, my father denied this information, saying that it was just a nickname that his friends came up with in his youth, and it was not a title. Suddenly, after this, the Alliance Wars begin, and they say that they ended with the transportation of members of a demonic sect. The Alliance member praised his workers and said that he still needed to find out something and that he would return tomorrow, and ordered them to tell their superiors. The warriors accepted their task and jumped in different directions. After the soldiers set sail, the guest said with a smile that now no one would disturb them and they could return to the celebration. As a result, sunset came, and they still continued to drink. Old friends exchanged kind words, when suddenly a member of the Alliance asked that something was not visible to Yagbin and that something had really happened. To which the director responded that a lot of time had already passed since she died. Friend calmly accepted this and said that they were indeed in poor health, but the frustration was visible in their facial expressions. But after a while, the guest again said with a smile that the director had confused him, and that he looked so familiar that he could not understand why. Poyu believed that he saw him while transporting criminals. And the head said that he was almost tied up then and that he almost died from the guest's sword. His alliance member decided to find out how the academy is making money now and that it seems to him that things are not going well right now. But the director of the academy said that there was enough food to live on for a family of 2. However, the old friend did not want to back down and ordered his childhood friend not to hold on to his pride and so that he would no longer think that this meeting was the real fate. And that if he wants to teach martial arts here, then with his skills he can be a mentor even at the Heavenly Dragon Academy. Which left the hero in complete shock. The swordsman's father kept trying to make an excuse that he was very pleased with these words, but that this place was also good, but the guest stood his ground and said that everything was no longer the same as in their youth and that even being a real martial arts master, if he didn't have money, he would have to starve. The hero sat next to him and in his thoughts agreed with the member of the alliance. I continue, the guest said that teachers are now paid little at all, and hasn't the director heard how much does the best teacher of each of the 5 great academies receive? But the master said that he could not compare with them in any way, and his son sat in amazement and did not understand why not if he had the skills. The old friend had already stopped holding back and called his friend a stubborn old man and that he had really decided to bury the handsome man's talent and that with his face the students themselves would gain their heads, only he sat in bewilderment. And when suddenly the hero decided to interrupt the conversation between 2 friends and wanted to find out who the best mentor was, someone like that, after that night fell. In the morning, the guest felt very bad due to the fact that he had too much alcohol last night, but the hero brought him water with honey, saying that he himself collected this honey and that it was an excellent cure for a hangover. His father stood behind the swordsman and asked where his water and honey were, to which the boy replied that he had given all the honey to a member of the alliance, and his father stood in bewilderment and could not understand why his son could not divide it in half. But the hero answered the director and said that then the effect would not be the same, and that it was better to give the guest a full jar and told his father not to be jealous that he could tell his brother, whom he had not seen for 30 years, that he got all the honey. Why did the alliance member laugh a lot, saying that he raised an excellent son? The boy continued to think about what Coach Sheol is an amazing person, and the fact that he and his father met after 30 years of separation, but judging by how happy he is, it is noticeable how many warm feelings he has for his father and that he is a good person if you know him better. His alliance member said that it was time for him to go and asked the swordsman what he thought about yesterday's conversation, and the hero replied that he was still thinking. The guest accepted this and said that there were still 3 months. So it is not necessary to resolve the issue right away. If it is resolved, let him find him and he will write him a letter of recommendation. The boy thanked his uncle, who accepted the gratitude and said that they don't like long farewells because it means extra tears and calmly left. When parting, the director told his old friend to be careful and he replied that next time he would bring good wine and they would get really drunk. And the next moment the guest simply flew away from the academy with one jump, which greatly surprised his father and the hero himself. After that, the swordsman said that he would go get ready for the morning lesson, but his father stopped him. He looked upset and asked his son that he was really planning to go to the Heavenly Dragon Academy. 6. The hero with a kind smile decided to ask whether his father would forbid him to go there, but in response the director said that even if he tried, he did not think that he would be listened to correctly. The boy agrees with his father's words, but is immediately interrupted by his head, saying that is it really possible that he really didn't give up, and that Miriam is not at all what he thinks, and the son only tried to agree. But the father was not going to back down, saying that the hero didn't know anything at all and that becoming a great master just because he was lucky, beating one person from the demonic sect would not work, if he had underestimated the swordsman. Then nothing would have happened and that he would spend his whole life spent on trying to cure what the hero has been ill with since birth, but still all attempts were even. The boy just stood there and didn't know what to answer to his father, but he knew everything, but he understood everything. What they were telling him, but he didn't even have time to get a word in. The director grabbed his son by the shoulders and said that even knowing all this, he still wants to enroll in the Heavenly Dragon Academy, which made the swordsman surprised. The head continued to say that everyone would laugh at him because he did not use internal energy and many would try to drag him into a fight. And with his health, he couldn't last even a month. The father continued to shake his son and say that he didn't understand anything and that he should still listen to his father. The father continued to shout at his son, saying that no one could cure him and they could not even find out the name of this disease. And the hero said that he understood and that stopped shaking him, and in his thoughts he could not tell his father that he knows, and he also knows the name and knows how to cure, but the problem is how much money he spent on it, but he knows everything and he hoped that they will stop shaking him until his neck is broken. The director did not stop his monologue and asked his son to listen to his father at least once and the fact that he is already 27 this year. And they enroll in the Heavenly Dragon Academy at 15, and what will happen to the hero if he loses to the children? The director asked his son to give up and just find a good village girl and get married. But the boy said that he did not understand what his father was talking about and that he was not going to enroll in this academy, which shocked the director of the academy. He stood there in bewilderment, didn't understand how it could happen, how he wasn't going to, and the son said that he had already told him to drink less and that he had completely forgotten yesterday's story. It turned out that the swordsman just wants to earn money. He once again clarified what exactly money is. And the fact that he wants to find a job, and when he heard about this academy, he thought that he could use his abilities there. The director was amazed at the guy's words, and the hero only said that he wanted to create conditions of luxury for his family and that it was time for the father to live off the money his son earned, which definitely made the head happy. After this, we are shown the hero's memories of how he was trained by 4 great swordsmen and shows us his sparring with the king of the Green Forest. The legendary swordsman said that he would have problems if the boy died before he learned the 18 blows of the triumph of the outcasts, and the heroes jumped back, saying that this was not all, and rushed into battle again. But the next moment, the fist of the king of the Green Forest is right in front of the guy's face. And the legend tells him that he could simply break the guy's skull and so that he would attack as expected, and the hero would agree. After a little sparring, the king said that that's enough for today, and the boy didn't understand why so quickly. But in response, the legendary swordsman said that he would tell the heroes where he hid the elixir and other treasures and asked him to find them. And this does not mean that he should take them for himself, and perhaps the king himself will need them. The legendary swordsman added that if he dies and only the hero survives, only then these elixirs and all sorts of treasures can be taken by the boy. The hero stood in bewilderment and did not understand why the legendary swordsman suddenly started talking about it, and in response he received only that rather than wait for everything to turn to dust, wouldn't it be better to give them to the guy, which caused a surprising silence and an exchange of glances between the two fighters. After this, the boy began to mock them, saying that, well, what should we do now, and isn't more than one dish with meat suitable today? And the king replied that the swordsman is an idiot and that he doesn't do this. This is for an additional portion. And the guy just said that for the sake of this you can find another meat. Which delighted the legendary swordsman. And the king invited the hero to study another technique. And then the memories ends and we see beautiful mountains covered with trees where the hero walks with his father, out of breath and thinking how well everything is hidden. The next moment the director stops and does not understand what he sees in front of him. Some jumps of a dark aura appeared in front of them and the swordsman only said that most likely they were in the right place. The head told his son that he kept saying that he wanted to master martial arts and that's why he thought that he was still trying and that's why he brought him to such a dangerous place. But still, it was clear from his face that the father was worried. However, the director didn't really believe his son and decided to clarify to Nusha that the elixir was really hidden here, and the son only laughed it off and said that the old man had really been deceived at every step all his life. And in his thoughts he only understood that of course the elixir was here and that this was the place where the marks began, and given that they are here, there is a high probability that the elixirs are still there. The hero asked the director to follow him, but the father walked very carefully with worries and he had the feeling that his son had been possessed by a ghost. And they rushed off. The teachers continued to walk and the hero felt a strange aura from the side and noticed a summer house. The father looked at this house with surprise that there really was one here, and the swordsman only said that he was right and in his thoughts thanked Master Main for using his elixirs. The sword doesn't say that the elixirs are probably somewhere here, it's that they are well hidden, and the father says that he really doesn't understand what kind of place this is and that, as one can only think, the rumors that we shared with the traveling pharmacist turned out to be true. After that, the director sighed heavily. I took out my blade because I thought that there were traps here, because the law of the Morail states that you cannot relax your vigilance until your very last breath. However, the son interrupted him by saying that there were no traps and that instead of them there was something else, which made his father surprised. The next moment the director, over the imperturbable fear, he asked the hero with worry what it was. And the swordsman only said that the father would show everything he was capable of, and some animal with red eyes appeared in front of them. The head stood in bewilderment. What exactly was he supposed to show? I turned around and saw that my son was not nearby, and the animal turned out to be a tiger that rushed straight at the director. 7. The father noticed the tiger's attack and somehow managed to repel its attack. He had a very aggressive look, and the hero watched from the side and did not understand how this is possible, because Master Meng said that it would only be a kitten, but now it is an adult animal, even though this was said several decades ago. The director responded to his son and asked what it was, and in response the boy said that the pharmacist said that instead of traps there would be a big beast. Nick panicked in a state of confusion and said that it was too late to say and that he didn't think that it would even be true. After that, the director was surprised, and it dawned on him that if they left this territory, the tiger would not follow them because he was guarding it. But the guy only thought that then he would have problems. Isn't that why he brought his father? But the swordsman decided to cheer up his old man and said that if they sell the skin of this tiger, they will be able to survive this winter twice as easily. And the chapter was illuminated by this information. The director hesitated because it was a really big beast. But on the other hand, he understood that poverty is also a sin, so he took out a blade that already glowed blue. And the hero just stood near the bushes, thought that everything worked out well, and encouraged his father, saying that he would pray for his victory from afar. And so he rushed into battle, and contact was about to occur between the two rivals. And the tigers struck each other and jumped back in different directions. The father only exclaimed that what he thought was that it was a spiritual beast, but in any case it was just a beast, and he inflicted a serious wound on the animal. And at the moment when the father was glad that he still struck him, the beast responded with a lunge with a loud roar, which made the teacher jump back. The director began to use the territory to gain an advantage in the battle. However, after each blow from the tiger, even the trees fell, and the swordsman continued to sit in the bushes and think about how strong this beast is really. And that even iron armor will not save you from his blows, and it will take even a first-class warrior or hunter by surprise. And so he again rushes at the beast, and the hero continues to reflect that fortunately his father is a first-class warrior who has reached the peak of his development, and that for the first time he sees a battle in full force from his old man. And the head continued to strike and did not understand why this beast had such strong skin, and no matter how much it attacked, it could not inflict any damage. And the boy just sat in the bushes and thought that when this is such an opponent, a spiritual beast, the battle will obviously be difficult. The hero's thoughts continued. He didn't understand how his father, who so easily dealt with the demonic sack, could not show all his power with this beast, and that although it was difficult to notice, he succeeded. And so the swordsman decided to ask his father why he was pushing so hard, and that he thought that the battle would be much easier, which made the old man angry, and he said that it was not so simple and then let the son try it himself. The guy was delighted and asked if he needed help, to which the father replied that he was fine and that if he joined he would only get in the way. The director continued to strike. However, he did not inflict much damage, but was pretty exhausted due to the fact that he had to dodge and parry the sharp attacks and attacks of the tiger. The beast continued to attack furiously, and the father was shocked. After all, if this continues, he will lose all the respect of his son, and it's time to end it. And the boy was only thinking that his father was really going to attack and that he was a little constrained in his movements. If he was in such a hurry, he would never win. The head decided to use some dangerous technique that was pierced with an icy light, and he said that this was the end of the beast and began to strike, which was filled with a blue aura. After the blow, the teacher of the decider coped with it and began to think that he seemed to have aged and that the battle at this level was killing him. But Sun called to his father and said that there was movement behind him, and he was surprised, and did not have time to parry the attack of the beast and flew straight into a tree with terrible force. The hero was scared because his father was lying near a tree writhing in pain, so he decided to jump out of the bushes and throw a stone at the tiger's face. And having hit him right in the side, the tiger growled and paused. A dialogue took place between family members. It was unclear to the father why his son was getting involved in a fight, because he said that he would only get in the way and that it was very dangerous. There was no point in interfering, and the son said that it didn't matter to him and that the main thing was that the old man was okay. And so the swordsman said that it's not worth saying such words, considering that the director himself is lame and no one will believe him. If God forbid he dies, then it's the end for the hero himself. After this, the father decided to order his son to run away from this place. And the boy just smiled and said that he should stop talking nonsense. But the next moment, they both felt the terrifying aura of the beast. It developed almost throughout the entire location, and it continued to growl very furiously and terribly. Because of this, the teachers began to sweat from their faces. And so the swordsman told his father to fight calmly and that he would cover him, but the old man did not understand what his son was talking about. And he said that they would have a better chance of surviving in such conditions, which made the director disappointed. The head exhaled and the son told him to aim more at the side and not try to use the chi energy of the sword. To which the father replied that he talks too much and that he himself knows what needs to be done, and jumped straight at the tiger with his blade. The director jumped screaming at the animal, and after that a terrifying explosion occurred at this location. And after that we see how the animal lies without its hind legs, and the father sat down on his fifth point from fatigue. And so the hero decided to show his father what he took out of the beast. It was a small golden core, because it was a spiritual beast. However, the guy thought that it should be larger, but this is already quite large, and with their skills it is impossible to catch a standing spiritual beast, and since the problem is solved, it is worth going to the summer house. The father agreed with his son and said that he wanted to end this quickly and rest, which caused doubts in the hero when he realized that he was mistaken, and that he thought that his father had reached the peak of his abilities. But something is stopping him. After that, the director called out to his assistant and told him to take a look at it. I don't think the boy was wondering what was there and saw a lot of leaves there, and so he realized that about 100 years had passed since the last time there were people here. He said that he knew that everything would be like this, and if it were just elixir, Master Meng would not have made so much noise. Both father and son stood in the gazebo in shock. 8. The hero was delighted with this find, but the director was at a loss. He understood that undoubtedly this was a rare elixir, but something confused him. And the boy understood what his father's doubts were, because he means that without normal meridian this elixir will not do anything. But this is because he does not know how this elixir is created, and on the other hand, the swordsman knows how it is done. After that the guy smiled. However, the problem was still present, and the hero needed money, and a lot of money, so much that even if he sold all these roots, he would also need to first train this body so that it could earn this money. The swordsman turns to the director with a grin and asks if he can eat it, and the father agrees with a smile, which made the guy surprised. Out of surprise, the hero decided to tease his father by saying that if the old man eats them, then it's all lost. Because of this, he became furious and hit his son on the head. And he ordered him to finally sit down on these sprouts, and the bump from the blow swelled almost behind his head. But then the swordsman smiled and realized that even this should be enough to begin to change his constitution. And after that, the guy invited his father to swim in the hot springs because they were there, but he was refused because they had no time for that now. The boy stuck his hand into the source, saying that the water here was most likely very warm, and was horrified. Memories of what the king of the forest told him came flooding back to him. He told me that there was a magnificent hot spring near the hut. When the swordsman interrupts him, they say that, and this is something like, if you swim in it, your internal energy will quickly increase, or the fatigue in your muscles will immediately disappear. And you can train without rest. To which the king replied that now, of course, the children have gone stupid and said that such a treasure would not exist peacefully on the mountain, calling the hero a fool, and that if that were the case, then every criminal in Murim would already be hanging there. He said that the thing is that Master Meng is an old man and there is meat for dinner today, but he can't have it, otherwise all his teeth will rot, which enraged the legend. The memories end, and the hero argues that Masterman is stupid and that he really believed that the treasures would simply lie here. The boy was shocked and delighted, and his father interrupted him by asking if something had happened. The swordsman understood that the king of the forest was never interested in weapons. However, the guy called his father and said that now it's not about these sprouts that they collected to make an elixir, and called his father to look at what the guy saw. After all, he only saw iron with such an aura in a previous life, and he will never be able to forget it because this iron pierced his heart. And the guy was sure that the swords of the blood demon were created from it. From the horror of the swordsman, he grabbed his heart. It was the legendary iron shooting star, is meteorite iron, and a rare type of iron ore that can only be found in meteorites. It can only be obtained by someone who would be stopped by the heavens, and all masters use balls from a shooting star. And depending on the skills of the swordsman, such a weapon can become legendary, capable of turning even the skies if all these blood demons did not have such a sword. Not even so, if the hero had such a sword, he would be invincible. But in any case, these were only the guy's reasoning. After all, the only thing that matters now is that he now has a shooting star right in his hands, and this is very unexpected, because it is a very rare metal. The father just stood there in bewilderment, not understanding what his son found that made him climb into the water with his clothes on. And the hero decided to tell the truth to his old man because he already suspected that he was lying. And the guy admitted that it was a shooting star. The director did not believe him, saying that this was complete nonsense, and asked his son if he was joking. But the swordsman stood with a completely serious face and asked if this looked like a joke. The father was at a loss and answered his son that it would soon get dark and that they first needed to go down from the mountain, and the treasure for which he could not take responsibility would only bring discord, and that if it was really meteorite iron, then they could not take this responsibility upon themselves. Continuing, the director said that if they find out about his possession, bloodshed will begin and even they will not be safe. Although they just found him. The hero agreed with this, but in his thoughts he still wanted to take it for himself. And he told his old man that this was not such a problem and that he could be taken away and simply not sold and kept. What angered the head, who asked if his son really wants to start a war and why should he expose himself to such danger. However, the swordsman continued his thought and said that even if he was left, someone would still find him, and this mountain was not far from their village and the martial artists would come to them because of rumors. These words made the old man surprised. And the boy continued to say that demonic sects and even those who are ready to draw a sword at any opportunity will come and ask your father if he can stop them all. After these words, the master began to think. Continue to prove that you are right. The heroes began to say that if they just quietly hide it at home, no one will know and everyone will think that they just brought a beautiful pebble with them. And the director interrupts him and says that he agrees, which made the guy very surprised. Continuing, the head said that he agreed with this. After all, if he says no, then his son will start rolling on the floor in hysterics, so he agrees to take him with him and simply hide him in his academy. And the swordsman was shocked and thought that he was just straining in vain and it was easier than he thought. The hero continued to think while they were about to go down the mountain, and he realized that he wanted to bow to Master Men and Kasuo and the falling star, but he didn't understand what to do now with the shooting star to make a weapon. Continuing to think, the guy realized that he could make several balls like the blood demon if he added another or a small weapon only from a shooting star. But his stream of thoughts was interrupted by his father hitting him on the head and telling him to stop laughing, and his son said with a smile that it was time for them to go home. The teachers returned home, and the director told his son not to drink the elixir while he was gone. To which the swordsman replied that he was not a fool and that he should go and sell the tiger skin to the school for a good price. The hero wished his father a good journey and said that he would be careful, just like that, and he said and began to prepare the elixir for himself, because spiritual art, based on the laws of heaven, which he will now fulfill, goes against the laws of nature. He began to interpret everything in the jar and continued to think that the cultivation method was also different from the norm for other martial artists. It was like a demonic art. The dark side of the hero played on himself, and he thought that this was a very big benefit and wanted to do it now just to be punished, and wishing himself bon appetit, he began to drink a jug. When the swordsman drank it all to the bottom, he lowered the bottle with the elixir onto the table, and he was illuminated by a terrible pain inside his heart from a gust of aura. The jug coming out of it broke and the dark aura enveloped his body. 9. The hero was enveloped in terrible pain, his body was tense, but he himself understood that this was only the first step and that he could not give up, and through force he sat in the lotus position to meditate. He was enveloped in a dark aura, and you can see how he continued to experience severe pain, after which the aura flared up and the guy screamed for it to move. The swordsman continued to receive terrible pain, but in his memories he realized that he had already been through similar things in the past and that the blood flow in his 8 auxiliary meridians was blocked by a large amount of polluted chi. And all this polluted chi accumulated during ordinary life is enough to finish him off before he turns years old. But the guy decided not to give up and decide who will win this fight. The hero began to scream in pain and the dark aura continued to rise upward. He almost flew up from the pain. The guy's veins were darkening, both on his arms and on his neck. He could barely restrain himself from the unbearable pain. As a result, he screamed very loudly. However, he understood that if he lost consciousness now, he would definitely be finished. After this, the dark aura began to disappear, and the roof of the academy collapsed one tile at a time and the trees began to shake. And the guy opened his eyes, around which there were dark veins due to the black aura. Because of such a strong spell, a tree on the territory of the academy fell and the cart turned over and, exhaling, the hero realized that he had succeeded and that he managed to form a dantian. He was enveloped in a blue aura, and between his two hands there was a lump of mana. The guy began to feel the power in his hands much better than before, and this was just the beginning. After all, thanks to this plant, he achieved the first phase of spiritual art that violates the laws of heaven. And he began to practice his attacks. However, the guy understood that if he wanted to move on, he would need more elixirs and constant cultivation. At least he extended his life by another 3 years. But even so, he would not be able to begin practicing this spiritual art yet. After all, his body is unlikely to withstand this because he needs to become stronger in any case, because the power of this technique is incredibly strong, and therefore the first step of a swordsman in solving this problem is to turn her weak body into an indestructible one. And the hero began to practice the art of Manhwa, the king of the green forest, striking triumph with the outcasts, because there is no better martial art for strengthening muscles. The boy already had a smile on his face from this technique, and he wriggled, practicing blow after blow. The wind pierced the air from his attacks. And then the sunset came and the swordsman realized that he could only train for as long as his body could withstand, and for now he was limited because the fatigue was visible on his face. But the hero decided to train until his father returns, and that when he can master the first half of the 18 blows of the triumph of the rejected, he will also gain his sixth sense. After that, the guy began to meditate and the bruise again began to appear between his two hands, and the hero understood that if he continued to train one day he would be able to master the other half, and then he would surpass the king of the green forest himself in martial arts. But would he be satisfied with only this? And the guy thought. After all, the swordsman still remembers the martial art of the cavalryman Hongwanhu, the cold moon goddess Unyarin, the swordsman Mo Yanghan, and the spiritual art that violates the laws of heaven. And he imagined how strong he would become if he mastered all this. Indeed, in this case, he can become the best in all history in the whole world. Night came and the father returned to the academy. He was happy because he was able to get a very large amount of money from the sale of the tiger skin, and said that his son would now fall from this price tag. However, the director was shocked to see his offspring lying on the earth. He ran up to him and decided to find out what happened to him and how long he had been in this state. And the swordsman only replied that the elixir turned out to be much stronger than he thought. I was surprised and asked elixir, and did he really decide to drink it alone? The swordsman decided to say with a smile that of course not. He didn't drink it. And the father got angry and said that didn't he tell the guy to wait until he returned? It's very dangerous to do it alone. And the hero just sat on his knees and admired the old man. The director grabbed his stick, saying that he had warned the guy. And the swordsman only said that the father should cool down and that all this needed to be discussed and no violence was needed. However, the head could not be stopped. He chased his son screaming, and the guy only tried to calm his father down and make him listen to him. And so, after some time, the hero says that even though he got screwed, after that life went on as usual every morning and every evening. He meditated and concentrated the polluted chi in the dantian and strengthened his body and became more dexterous with the help of the 18 blows of the triumph of the rejected. And finally the day came that the guy had been waiting for. He received a letter. Namely, a letter from an alliance member answering the guy's question. And in the letter it was written that the Heavenly Dragon Academy announced a recruitment of new mentors. The swordsman was delighted with this. And then a sunny day comes, many people gather at the academy and discuss the upcoming battle, calling it the Battle of the Century, and discussions appear that if the son loses, he will not be allowed into the city, and the hero just stands and the sweat comes off him. The swordsman is standing in a very beautiful outfit, many people are standing behind him and cheering. And the boy asks his father if the old man decided to test him and told the neighboring villages about it, and that so many people would not even come to the village elder in village exams. And the director only says with a sad face that if his son doesn't want to be laughed at, let him say that he won't go to the city, and the hero with a calm grin says that he can't do that. The swordsman asks the child who previously praised him to hold his things, and the boy agrees. He already fell from the weight of this bag of things. Tells his son that this is the last warning. And the hero says that he has already decided everything. After which the father says that he warned the guy a month ago that there would be children there who were much stronger than him, and does he really think that he can teach them something? To which the swordsman replies that of course he can, that he is no longer the same person he was a month ago. The director is disappointed in these words. I understand that they never say that, and the guy lies there and says that he doesn't look like he's bragging, that she seems to be saying her own words. And the father agrees with this. He begins to take out the sword and everything around him is filled with a blue aura, and he says that he will look at what his son has already learned and he will not use internal energy to make the fight fair, because the first movement always feels as if someone presented a sword to someone's throat. The hero got goosebumps down his spine like an uncontrollable hurricane, and this technique is called a sword controlling a whirlwind. The director admits his son, they say that judging by this stance, he really trained. And the swordsman only remained silent in response to this and rushed into battle with his old man. The guy said that his father would definitely have to take a shower after this fight, and they grappled. The hero delivered his blow and bounced 5 meters. The spectators were shocked and delighted at what happened after the first blow and began shouting that the guy was cool. However, the son decided to provoke his father by saying that the fight would have to be stopped a little because the opponent's swordsman's technique with a sword felt as if there was always something missing in it, and he would leave so that he could figure it out. This angered the director, and he, in bewilderment and anger, began to attack his son, saying that one should not say such a thing to one's own father. And the swordsman appeared and with great difficulty began to fight back, realizing that he most likely provoked the master. Head jumping and screaming although he attacked the hero, but the guy noticed that there was something wrong with his father's shoulder. Speed of course there is, but there are some defects. And the swordsman easily repelled this blow, which made his father surprised. However, the next second the blade was already near the guy's leg. Surin repelled this blow, but with great difficulty, and he began to think that he barely had time to block and that this technique was almost impossible to predict. If he continued to fight like this, he would lose, and that first he needed to distance himself and think. And the heroes jumped away from their father to a far distance, and the audience again flared up and began shouting that this was amazing, that they did not expect this. The swordsman only muttered under his breath that it seemed to him that after this they would all be finished, and the director only continued to tell his son to say that he would not go anywhere if this continued, he could get hurt, which only made the guy grin. Noticing that the director's son didn't even think about it, even the old man rushed into battle and began to strike blow after blow, and his son only understood that it was not easy to withstand such a blow and that it seemed to him that the sword was about to break. However, the school of blows continued, but the swordsman began to understand that if he held out, he would soon will be able to understand the technique that the old man uses. And especially if this is the same technique that he had been trying to master all last month. And after some time the swordsman saw this blow and dealt exactly the same one to his father, and their swords came together with a terrible look. The director flew back from this blow and was shocked because he did not understand how his son could use the same technique, and the guy only said how it works and said that now it was his turn to attack first. And the old man just muttered to him to try if he could. And so they entered the fight again and did not deliver the same blows. And the wind spread throughout the entire academy, and at one moment of the fight he noticed that he could not keep up with the speed of his son. However, with great difficulty, the old man still managed to transfer the blow straight into the ground, and the guy was only thinking about what was good. It was that he puts more strength into the blows, and that the technique of the sword controlling the whirlwind relies on the unpredictability and myths of the fanball. And this is not the technique that requires a lot of power to hit. And so the blade began to fly straight into the old man's face. His son stopped his blow so as not to harm his relative, and after stopping the attack, a whirlwind of wind rushed throughout the academy. The director stood completely shocked and remembered the death of his wife. And the hero only said that the death of his mother is not the old man's fault, just as the fact that he was born sick is not his fault, and that he is not the heavy burden that a father must bear and must bear throughout his life, which at first makes the father very surprised but to get angry. Tears began to flow from his head, and he did not understand what his son was talking about and began to be indignant that the guy was not a heavy burden for his father, and, in hysterics, the old man began to strike. However, the guy easily dodged him. And he touched the chest with the blade, which felt like he had freed his father from the AKS. After this, the swordsman asked that his old man no longer feel sorry for him. Because the guy understood that his father felt guilty and suppressed his feelings, and probably because of the death of his wife and his son's illness, he closed himself off from the whole world and forgot how to fly. After this battle, the hero hoped that his father would be free from all shackles. After all, he has talent and therefore it is easy for him to become something more than just a master. After which the old man lowered his blade and stood silently in front of his son. And so the head had a sad smile and he admitted that he had lost and allowed his son to leave. And the spectators who watched this exploded with joy and were delighted with this battle. The children ran up to the hero and began to congratulate and laugh that they really now had a new main mentor in the village and that everyone was proud of him because before he was very weak. The guys wished him to do well at the academy, and the adults gave him all sorts of food for the journey. And one of the boys said that he also wants to go to the Heavenly Dragon Academy when he turns 15 and asked the swordsman to train him. And adults decided to find out from the mentors why they couldn't just let their son go, because he's still a child. And the boy just stood with a smile on his face and looked at his old man, because he looked a little tired but filled with new strength. And so we see how father and son are standing right next to the exit from the academy and the old man tells him to earn more money and come back when he improves. The hero only said that the academy should survive until he returns and that the director should keep an eye on everything here. Which definitely angered the head and the guy said he was leaving. However, when Surin was leaving, his father told him in the back that at the Heavenly Dragon Academy he would be able to meet his grandfather on his mother's side, which made the guy very surprised. And the old man continued to say that he is the elder and is responsible for the students of all the academies. And the swordsman only exclaimed and asked why he was learning about it only now. The director's face changed and the son realized that something had happened between them and decided to find out if they had quarreled. To which the father replied that yes, and that a lot of time had passed since the hero's mother and the elder saw each other. And the hero decided to find out why this happened and when was the last time they saw each other, to which he received the answer that at the time of the wedding between his father and mother. My son was attacked by delirium tremens. After all, 30 years have passed. The swordsman decided to ask the head that if so much time had passed, then he was still like an alien and why then call him an elder, and the director only said that the guy was too rude. And that one way or another he doesn't know how the elder will treat him and that it seems to him that he will like the heroes because he is very similar to his mother. Or he will simply try to kill him because he looks like his father. Which put the guy into a strong stupor. The old man continued to guard his son. They said that if he meets a man named Mikhaigrim, then let him run, but the swordsman did not want to listen and said that it was enough to scare him and he did not understand whether the grandfather would really try to kill his grandson. The father decided to find out from his son that maybe he wants them to go together. After all, if the two of them are the first, he will not kill his grandson and there will be a chance to escape. My hero told his old man to calm down, that he had already decided everything. And finally, the swordsman said that he would completely sort it out and that the director would take care of his health in his absence, which certainly made his father calm down a little and the guy set off on his way. However, she continued to scream. They told him to draw a letter every month and if he doesn't contact him, then he will come for him so that someone knows and the swordsman agrees with everything and rushes off on his way. The heroes kept moving away, and the father became sad because he considered his son heartless, because he never looked back because he wanted them to be together until he ended, but now there is no need, so he let him go. And the old man can't even imagine how many girls the swordsman will break the hearts of because he looks like his mother. And we see how the spirit of the wife appears next to the director and he thinks that most likely this will happen, and the girl just turns her head away. And he decided to ask his wife, should he go after his son? And he began to think that this was the only gift that his wife left him before she died and that he was like her. He was just as hot-tempered and he caused a lot of problems, but he was the director's son and he would give his life if it could cure him. Decides to quietly follow the swordsman, but the spirit of his wife stops him, asking him to stop doing this because he has already lost. And the father only agrees with this and understands that the spirit of her love is right and how can he even protect him if he lost. And he accepts it with a laugh, because he didn't use chi or even all his strength, but a loss is still a loss and he lost to him. And after that the old man began to cry quietly. The director's tears continued to flow, however, he tried to laugh and told his wife that she was not to blame for her death and for the illness of his son. My wife's wife was disappointed to learn that he had been blaming himself all this time. And the old man only said that if Yagbin had not met him, she would not have died so early. And when he started talking about his son, his wife interrupted him, saying that he would not have been born and that he must be joking. The director wanted to apologize, but the woman said that she knew how her husband felt and that he should not worry, because their son was already an adult and let him go and let him do what he wanted. And so the father calmed down a little after talking with his wife and lowering his head. He said that thanks to her, his heart is not so heavy. And the beloved only replied that the head was great and that he should get married again if he no longer needs to take care of his son. And the old man said that there was no question of marriage and that he planned to study martial arts that he could not master for this, and began to practice attacks at the academy, and the wind began to wrap around his body. His sword once again lit up with a blue aura and the wind around him began to disperse the leaves. He continued to move very clearly and precisely, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. At one point he thought and stopped, which forced him to close his gaze. And he began to remember how they used to call him handsome. And he said that he didn't think he was worthy of this nickname, and remembered the academy itself, how they mocked him, asking who he even was, why does he interfere with drinking, and how can he criticize someone's appearance at all? He remembered his wife whom he met in some restaurant. Her smile and how their first meeting was unsuccessful. And then she looked so weak, as if she would break from the slightest blow, and how she looked at the old man with a challenge and asked to buy her a drink. His head flew up from these memories and remembered that somehow he was able to fall in love with this weak woman and proposed marriage to her, promising that he would change, that she would become the only woman for him. And in response she only asked if he was ready for this, because she would not live long due to poor health. But this did not frighten her father, and he said that he didn't care. And so she decided to find out whether the old man would marry a second time if she died, and in response she only heard from him that such a thing could not happen, he could not do that. After this, the memories went on how the newlyweds met with the elder. He was against their marriage and told him to get out of the way easier. How dare he even ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, and said that if he didn't leave now, he would flog him to death. And Yabin contradicted her father, saying that she shouldn't do this. After all, if her husband dies, she will die too, which made her grandfather very angry. And he remembered how he miraculously managed to survive thanks to his wife, and how he wanted to make her happy. Memories continued to illuminate the director. He said how he would help him find a cure for his wife, and she only wanted to travel with him, and asked him not to be angry because she always wanted to travel with any loved one. After this, we see how their son was born and he was very happy, said that he was very similar to his love and how she did not come to her senses after giving birth. And after all the memories, the old man heard a voice from the wind and it said that he looked much better now. And the father only thanked his wife with a sad face. And his blade was illuminated with a very beautiful blue aura. We are transferred to the Chudzak Academy, one of the 5 great academies, which has the best mentors and equipment, and it looks very large, and then a dialogue takes place among 3 men. One of them says that he studied at this academy 20 years ago. And his interlocutor says this, that he never gets tired of listening to this story no matter how many times he tells it. And the hero just stands on the sidelines and thinks that Fat Man hardly looks like a first-class warrior, and the other 2 are mediocre at best, and it even occurred to the guy to drag them out to some mountain and bury them there because they are very noisy. The guy didn't stop telling his story. They said, well, what can we do now that it was the Heavenly Dragon Academy that invited him to become their mentor? He didn't understand how he could get into the Heavenly Dragon Academy. The guys sitting with this fat man praised him, calling him well done, and that they were sure that the picture of the Heavenly Dragon Academy would find new hope, and he agreed, laughing. However, the people who worked in this establishment and sat at the tables were drooping because of its volume. The fat guy continued to boast, saying that after he becomes a mentor at the academy, he won't forget about them, and so that his friends don't worry, and that's why he wanted to offer everyone a beer, but he was interrupted by some tall man calling them disgusting. The guy with the staff says that such a fat and drunken pig like him doesn't get a position as a mentor at the academy, and that even if the Heavenly Dragon Academy doesn't have enough talent, it will be too much. And the hero immediately realized that he was a master and that this aura was amazing. The plump guy's friends decided to rebel against these words, calling this master sick and saying that he doesn't even know who they are, but the fat guy himself asked his friends to keep quiet and that if they offended him, they were corpses. However, the master stood calmly and ordered that you continue to talk. The 3 chubby guys were already starting to see the sweat disappear from their faces. And the swordsman just continued to think that he was seeing the master for the first time since he found himself in this business and he was probably 20-something years old. And what if this guy is a master at this age? It means that he is either a genius or there is a famous family behind him, but judging by his behavior, both options are correct. After what he said, Puklyash decided to apologize, saying that he behaved inappropriately because he was drunk and thanked the master for helping him sober up before he did anything. And the guy only answered that nothing bad had happened. After all, one way or another, there were no more empty seats in the permanent yard and that he could no longer walk further because his legs hurt. The Plums perceived this cunning move as a threat and decided to leave, saying that this was a huge coincidence. They were just about to leave, asking the master to sit down, after which they rushed to leave. As soon as they left, all the people who worked and sat in this establishment were very grateful, because after such noise and march they felt better in silence and began to thank this guy. And the hero just sat on the sidelines and ate noodles. I hope that the boredom will be relieved if he watches the fight. How suddenly this master decided to sit down with the hero and said that he couldn't even think that they wouldn't get together. And how could such a weakling even become a mentor at the Heavenly Dragon Academy? And he decided to ask the hero's opinion, which made the swordsman astonished. Suryam sat in surprise and did not understand what was happening. And he decided to ask the master whether he had any business with him. To which the guy responded that the hero interested him. After all, as soon as he spoke to those fat guys, the swordsman reacted first and was ready for a fight, and isn't that enough to be interested in him? And he thought about the role because he wanted it to be unnoticeable, and it seems that this guy with the staff is much stronger than he expected, and he decided to apologize if it got on his nerves. And the master only said that given that he openly declared his aggressive attitude, this was an expected reaction, and decided to apologize to the swordsman for causing a stir and offering him a drink. But the hero only said that it was okay, but he was busy and wouldn't be able to have a drink, and the next moment the master decided to introduce himself. His name is A.K. Yango and he doesn't have a title yet, but he's just new to Kangho. What made the guy surprised was his new friend, a young gentleman from an excellent pedigree. And after that, Baek Suryong introduced himself and said that he also doesn't have a title yet, but that he's new to Kangho. After all, the Muri have so many 7 groups that use a spear, but among those who still use the 3 best techniques are known. Techniques of the AK family, techniques of the Che family and the Yang family. And among them, the technique of the AK family is considered the most perfect, because the Lord of the Spears AK Pai, one of the 10 great masters, is the current head of the AK family. And since there is a great master in the AK family, they walk through the world quite confidently. Yango wanted to talk longer and even offered to pay for food and drinks, and the swordsman only reasoned that if he was part of the AK family, then he should have known about him from rumors, but this was the first time he heard the name AK Yango. And the hero decided to find out how old his comrade was, to which he received the answer that the master was 25, which means that Surin is 2 years older. And the guy with the staff, delighted, decided to ask that he could then call the swordsman brother. What threw the heroes into a stupor, and he thought about what kind of annoying guy is this, why should he call him brother when they first met, and that of course he was not in a friendly mood. Although after that they decided to order a drink first. And then night came when the guys were already in the living rooms of the academy. He shouted and said that his father was irresponsible, to which the hero agreed and said that he had the same one. However, the master says that he could not make friends, he only trained until he was half dead because he followed his father's orders, and what is the point in sending him to look for a partner of equal strength? To which the swordsman replies that for him it's the other way around, and that he barely persuaded him to let himself go alone, and all these years the old man never left the swordsman's side, and that he almost died when he learned one strange technique. To which Youngho replied that the swordsman has the talent to talk about his life as if it did not concern him. And the heroes agreed with this and asked, is it really because of this master that he ended up in Kangho? Is it really the first time in 25 years that he has received it? According to the fact that this is the way it is. And the swordsman realized that this was the most banal reason why one could end up in a situation that he had heard. But Youngho replied that he sees only one hero here, and judging by his appearance, he is not that strong, which made the guy surprised. And continuing, the master decided to find out whether it was not the monster or actually the hero, and in response the boy only told him to think as he wanted. But the swordsman was only thinking in his head that he didn't feel the TSI in him and most likely decided so, and in order to heal his meridians and get to the level of changing the laws of heaven, he needs to collect many more elixirs and techniques. How can he earn so much money? The master decided to ask the hero why he decided to leave home. To which the swordsman replied that he wanted to pass the exam at the Heavenly Dragon Academy and that his goal was to become a mentor and earn a lot of money, which Young-hoo agreed with, because he wanted the same thing. The heroes were surprised because he didn't understand why a master should take exams if he was looking for a partner. To which the guy with the staff replied that everything was not so and that the swordsman should not think anything like that because he just wanted to go with him, but Surin was at a loss. Young-hoo continued by saying that it seemed to him that a lot of adventures would await him this way and he was ready for anything if the swordsman agreed, he could even pay for all expenses. What put the hero into a stupor and he did not understand what adventures we were talking about. After that, Varyan turned to his newly made friend and told him to be sure that even after they both sober up, they will remain together for what he received in agreement. And so they show us Namchan how some terrible grandfather was killed with a sword and everything was covered in blood. And the guys decided to walk around the city and were very surprised, because everything is different in the big city, as he thought, and that they first need to find somewhere to spend the night, and the hero said that he needed to look somewhere, which surprised his partner. And so the swordsman met his guest from the Koyeol Alliance. The father's friend said that he was warned that the hero would come and that he had already managed to write a letter of recommendation, for which the swordsman thanked his uncle. A member of the alliance drew attention to the guy with the staff and asked the hero if he had already found friends. To which Surin replied that yes, and they met on the way here. Young-ho introduced himself to the old man and said that it was his first time in Kangho, which Koyeol accepted with a smile. He was glad that a guy from the AK family had arrived here and that the hero and the old man would have to discuss a lot since they had not seen each other for a long time, but he needed to go, and that lately he had not been himself. Surin was surprised that the alliance member was so busy because he wanted to question him, but he also understood that the most important thing was that the letter of recommendation had already been written. However, the father's friend said that he had something else to say and decided to offer one small job to the swordsman, saying that he would help him a lot if he figured it out. These words greatly surprised the hero because he did not expect that work would appear immediately. To which the old man replied that recently a soldier from Murim killed a civilian. This shocked the friends and they could not expect this, and Koyeol continued to say that the technique that this soldier used may belong to the demon blood sect, which horrified Suryoung. A member of the alliance turned to the swordsman, saying that he had already identified the technique of the demonic sect once and that although they were not sure that this was exactly the technique, the corpse was damaged so much that they suspected the possibility of this. The hero was at a loss and decided to ask the topic. So you just need to check their suspicion, to which the answer he received was that it would be great if he caught the criminal. If he helps with this case, the Italian Murim will receive an honorary award and will be able to attach it to his letter of recommendation. Surin only thought in his mind that this was a good deal and another merit, to which his father's friend replied that if he was interested in this, he would contact the city authorities, to which the swordsman agreed and said that he would try to help. And we are transferred to the Murima Alliance, which contacted the guys. In the building we see a red-haired guy greeting friends. He introduced himself as Commandant Chung Chom, who is heading this investigation. And the guys introduced themselves in response with a kind smile and a little worry. And the first thing they decided to do was to look at the corpse first, saying that the body was not in the best condition. The hero began to look at it. And his friend stood in horror at the sight of the corpse, and the next moment he turned away because he felt bad, and the swordsman was at a loss and did not understand why he insisted on coming here. And so the hero looked at the pipes and covered them back with a rag, and the commandant came up and asked him to tell his opinion about the guy, to which he replied that he would like to see the suspects and that decisions cannot be made only after examining the corpse. To which Cheon replied that they then need to the Scarlet Flower Chamber, is that it is a brothel owned by Elder Ho, and there they will find the first suspect. We are transferred to the Scarlet Flower Chamber and we hear from there the cry of some person that he didn't do it. It turned out to be an elderly woman who tried to justify that they had quarreled that day. But this is a common situation and she didn't do it. After which the swordsman decided to find out whether this woman and the elder were close in their relationship, to which he received a positive answer, and the woman did not understand why this question was asked, to which the guy asked why they often quarreled, which led to embarrassment and shock to the suspect. On this, the woman clenched her fists and said that the elder ordered her to retire and transfer management of the house to someone else, and she said that she was not going to do this and that maybe he paid the expenses for the success of the brothel due to her. And the hero was only thinking that this brothel is really big and it deserves to be called one of the 10 attractions of Namchang. Their income must be huge, and it is not surprising that she did not want to hand over control. Suryan continued to think about the woman, only adding that even despite this, she loved him, and maybe the others said that he was an illegal moneylender and pointed fingers at him. In fact, he was a good person. The swordsman only tried to calm the suspect down, thanking her for the information, because he immediately realized that it was not she who did this, because this woman is not capable of such a thing. And so the commandant called the next suspect, and the next moment a scream appeared for everyone to get out of the way that they were bastards. The screaming continued behind the door because the suspect was shouting that they don't even know who he is and that they would tell you to tell grandma to come out right now. And the woman just stood there in shock and didn't know what to do, saying that this idiot had come again. And the next moment the door flew out in the other direction and one of the guards fell on the table. Everyone was shocked and called out to the victim. It was General Chan. After what he saw, Shion said that there is no need to look for the second suspect, and we see how a group of people with swords come in and tell the woman that there is grandma, and why did she pretend that she was not here? It turned out to be the son of Elder Ho Il, and he is the second suspect. The woman was furious and asked this hooligan how dare he create disturbances here and ordered him to get out, to which the bandit responded by saying that he had come to take control of his property and asked if something was wrong. To which the first suspect became furious. She did not understand what kind of property we were talking about and how dare this kid say such a thing. After all, this is the chamber of the Scarlet Flower, and she ordered the guard to immediately expel this bandit. However, the second suspect said that this room was only hers while the old man was alive, and this hooligan had already managed to take the girl hostage, and he continued to say that the woman did not understand what was going on, but the hostage had tears flowing from her eyes and all that she only wanted to be helped. The hero sat and looked at the second suspect and thought that if someone like him took over the affairs of the brothel, everything would immediately fall into decay. Young-Hu began to become enraged and was about to rush at the bandit and decided to ask the swordsman that he would really just watch. To which the commandant said that these were family problems and he did not think that the city authorities should interfere, which made the guys surprised and continued. He said that it was their right in most cases, the authorities would not interfere in a showdown between Murim warriors. However, the red-haired guy continued by saying that they have balls, which means they are Murim warriors. Well, he clarified that the guy with the staff is also a Murim warrior and that he also has a sword. The guy caught the whole point and with a smile began to take out his staff. And the next moment the bandits stood frightened, as if they were whitewashed. They did not understand what was happening. But the bird of the bandits only thought that the cunning old woman had already managed to find the mercenaries or why this guy was doing this. And Yang-Hu only said that no one should worry and everyone would be alive. One half was lying on the ground, after which the second suspect turns around and says that it seems well, I saw that the warrior managed to do it, and why don't they calmly discuss everything and the fact that he can pay twice, no, even 3 times more than grandma. The criminal was so frightened that he was already trembling and continued to throw out the price tag, offered 3 times and 5 times more and times more, continued to say that he has more money than this grandmother thanks to the chamber of the Scarlet Flower and he has more of it. To which the guy with the staff ordered the bandit to shut up and that this is how women can be treated. And the fact that he will not forgive this man for daring to present a sword to the throat of an ordinary girl. And he only tried to apologize through the blows. And so, after the fight, we see how a line of criminals with swollen faces are sitting and asks who these guys are, and the hero approaches the gang and decides to ask if he killed the elder Ho, but as a mentor, he has heard a lot of lies and can calmly recognize them. But at the same time, the swordsman understood that this guy was just a third-rate warrior and he wouldn't even be able to control his reaction. And after this question, the suspect, in hysterics, said that he didn't do such a thing, he simply couldn't, and continued by saying that the elder would have died anyway in a couple of years and why would he kill him? After which Yang-Hu, standing behind Serena, said that for the guy his death was most beneficial. But the criminal only said that he was not the only child in the family, which surprised everyone around him. The hero decided to find out that he had other children and they told him that this guy was the only one, and the suspect only replied that they were not registered under his name, but he had a lot of children from his mistresses. And the guy started shouting at the woman, saying that it was really the grandmother who didn't know about them, and didn't I tell you the bastards came to ask for money, after which they began to shut each other's mouths in rage. And the hero got angry, and with a very cheerful face he hit the bandit on the head and said that they had nothing else to do here and that it was time for them to go. And he decided to find out who the last suspect was, and the commandant said that he would take the guys to him. And after leaving the building, Young-Hoo didn't understand anything, because how can a son say such a thing about his father, and it's so childish? After all, parents sell their children because of money. And children kill their parents, and everything is decided by money because of them. Long-term friendship can turn into enmity. Lovers who have sworn to love each other forever can suddenly decide to destroy their partner. Those who eke out a miserable existence, those who have fun in a brothel differ only in the amount of money in their pockets, and everyone says that there are things more valuable than money, but in the end you can only keep them with the help of money and the freedom to develop your talents. Vows to your beloved. Happy family. Those who find it difficult to earn a piece of bread can only dream of a happy life. The hero added to his friend and said that it is because of this that people with money have more opportunities, after which the guy with the staff understood everything. And the red-haired guy just walked silently and led his friends. But at the same time, the swordsman understood that it was for the sake of money that he wanted to get into the Heavenly Dragon Academy, and that he needed to calm down, but first he needed to look at the last suspect. And so we see a guy approaching some kind of shop, and a huge man says that he didn't kill him. However, Surin notices that this man looks suspicious of the others and decides to say that this gentleman's story about his exploits as a mercenary warrior is very impressive. And the man only angrily replies that he wandered the world and became a mercenary when he was younger, but started a new life after the wedding, and the hero only with a smile asks again, is it really a new life, and is it really like a pawn of an illegal moneylender? And the suspect only replied that with such a face, oh, how difficult it is for him to find a normal job. An elder Ho helped him and offered him this job. But the commandant interrupts the man and says that this is still unknown and there are no guarantees that the suspect is telling the truth. And the hero stood in thought, because among all the suspects, this one seems to be the most honest. But the criminal decides to interrupt and say that in the end, if he is a suspect, then so be it, and have the guys found his will? The hero was very surprised, and the suspect continued that he heard that in the will he declared an heir, and was surprised that the guys didn't know about it. The hero was shocked because he didn't understand why they weren't told that there was a will, to which the commandant replied that if it became known to everyone, there would either be riots. But the swordsman only stood in bewilderment and called out to Cheon, which made him turn around and look with contempt. And Suryong only said that the whole world was watching the development of events precisely because there was a chance that a civilian was killed with the help of demonic technology. The commandant agreed with this. And Yango stood and hoped that they were not quarreling. After which the hero added that maybe the authorities don't like the fact that they suddenly joined the investigation, but the guy asks the commandant to help them find the culprit. To which the Chekhan said that it was good and that tomorrow they would go to the crime scene because it was too dark today, and said that they would meet in the morning. However, the swordsman understood that he would not say anything to them until the very end if it was something important, and because of this he stood in bewilderment. And the guy with the staff only decided to ask his friend why he was looking at the commandant like that, and he replied that it was just a habit. But I think about Surion, who said that he watches people, analyzes them, and remembers everything about them, and it was precisely thanks to this that he lasted so long in the Blood Demon sect. And then night comes and we are transferred to the hero's room, where the guy lies and thinks that the killer is somehow illogical. And even if he didn't kill the old man with his own hands, he could have ordered someone else to do it, and the most suspicious thing here is the will. After all, what worries him most is the traces of the use of the technique of the demonic sect, and it may well happen that this was done by the Blood Demon sect, and the swordsman only thought that it seems that he got involved in something more complicated than he expected and got angry because of it. But the hero's flow of thoughts is stopped by Yango. He runs into the room shouting that there is some kind of disorder going on outside. And Suryong just didn't understand why his friend screamed in the middle of the night. But the guy with the staff added that people say that the elders there caught fire, which shocked the guys. And in fact, this is how it turned out. Friends ran out into the street to see it and saw how a 3-story building burst into flames. They were amazed by this picture, and the commandant began to approach them, and the guys decided to find out what happened. To which Cheon replied that Ho Il committed arson and that a corpse that looked like him was found inside the house. The swordsman was perplexed and asked if he had really committed suicide, to which they simply gave him the suicide note that they had just found. But the hero understood that he was not the person who would atone for sins and he was not an arsonist. Yango said that there was a note with a confession, which means the problem is solved. But if the suspect is dead, then they definitely won't be praised, which Suryong agreed with. But the swordsman did not believe that everything was so simple and thought that it was somehow very suspicious. And so the commandant says that although they didn't receive an answer and unexpectedly, now the case is closed and we thank the authorities for the help of the guys and that he will then deal with everything else. The guy with the staff said that they understand everything and that it's better for them to go back, although it's a pity that this happened, but the hero says that they won't go anywhere. The swordsman told his friend to go alone to his room and he would need to discuss something with the pad nim. And the guy with the staff just stood there in shock and didn't understand. Did the hero really find out something and he said yes? The commandant was walking on the topic and a silhouette was approaching darkly. He noticed this and exclaimed who was there and almost struck a blow at the hero, and he only said with a grin that it was he here, but Cheon did not understand what he needed in such darkness. Suryan decided to say that it was the technique the killer used. To which the guy with red hair asked that this was not a technique of the demonic sect that the guy could not figure out. To which the swordsman agreed and said that he suddenly realized that this is part of the martial art of Kulva and it is used in the sect by blood demons and that the commandant probably knows that although demonic martial arts make him strong, this will result in problems, to which the man agreed. The hero continued by saying that you can go crazy and even start killing because of this technique, and the commandant did not understand what the guy was getting at, to which Suryan said that Cheon knows this technique and it's a fairly safe art for Leo, but only if he is trained as it should be. These words angered the commandant and the swordsman continued by saying that such people have the ability to turn their eyes red under the influence of strong emotions and also develop body pain, digestive problems and emotional sensitivity. And no matter how the commandant tried not to show emotions because he was afraid that he would not be discovered, but it did not work out. To which the guy with red hair said that he is always like this. Suryong said that everyone says so and that at first they suspected an assistant, but such experienced warriors as him would not do such a thing, and besides, this is a complex technique, so the owner of the brothel and the son of Elder Ho could not learn it. But what about the weak boy who wanted to become a Murim warrior and despite everything? However, the commandant said that the hero has a rich imagination and no one will believe it. But the swordsman said that the Chan's shoes were covered in Harry's footprints and that he did not have time to change his shoes after he ran away from the crime scene. And the fact that his position does not matter, if he reports on him, he will certainly be kicked out, and the fact that he was too hasty and ruined everything. And finally, Surin decided to find out why the commandant killed Elder Ho. After which Cheon flew into a rage and ordered the guy to shut up and rushed at him with a sword and started screaming because of what he killed him. It's just because he was his father. Which surprised the hero quite a bit. And the swordsman realized everything, because now everything became clear why he killed him, because then the name of the heir in the will, also this guy, the commandant began to become furious, and the guy only told him to stop because by using this technique he shortens his life. But Cheon didn't care that this was shortening his life and he just wanted to kill the hero. However, the swordsman jumped up after the opponent's attack and delivered targeted blows to him on the back, which made the opponent fall. The killer began to deliver his attacks, but they were very slow and the hero simply fought off everything, and after the next attack he threw the bandit over himself and told him to first calm down and not do anything stupid. And so the commandant began to calm down and the swordsman decided to find out where he learned it. To which Cheon replied that after his mother's death, when he cried at her grave, a man in dark clothes gave him a book about martial arts and he said that if he learns this technique, then he has great power. And for such a weakling like him, this book helped a lot and thanks to this case, he received the position of guard, but shortly after that, Elder Ho came to him and said that he was his real father and that he was sorry that his mother died. But the commandant realized that even though he knew how he lived, he didn't care, and then he decided to kill the elder, because he doesn't care about wealth. To which the heroes decided to find out. They already had the name of this guy in the will, and he replied that everything was correct, but he did not want it to become known and asked to kill him. But the swordsman said that he understood everything and said that he would not report him, which surprised his opponent. The guy continued and said that he would pretend that this did not happen. And this is their secret. But the killer did not understand why the hero was doing this. But in return, the guy suggested that the commandant give this useless testament in exchange for his life, which made his rival surprised. Continuing, Shurong said that Cheon should quietly close this case and get rid of the side effects of Holwoo. The hero agreed to leave everything in the past only on the condition that the case would be closed quietly and they would get rid of the consequences of the dangerous martial art of Holwoo. To which Cheon replied that he did not want to make the contents of the will public and that he would rather die than tell who his real father is. And the swordsman only laughed and said that you can't be so naive and that he has an excellent plan, which amazed the red-haired guy. We are again transported to the Scarlet Flower Chamber, where the first suspected woman rejoiced at how wonderful everything was and that the old man's entire inheritance was now hers. And that if her idiot son had not killed the old man, then she would have done it. And all she has to do is find the will, and even if she doesn't find it, she can simply create a fake. And she will entrust the forgery to some small sect, and for one thing she will bring money to the authorities, and that will be quite enough. But her cunning plan was interrupted by the maid, who said that Podu had come. The woman was scared but ordered to let him in. And then a red-haired guy comes in with 2 accompanying people, and the new owner is so happy to greet him. And so she decided to find out why the authorities decided to come to her again. To which Cheon replied that they had found the will of Elder Ho. This startled the woman. The commandant continued his speech, saying that since she was close to the murdered man, they decided to tell her first of all about and Mr. Pak too. To which the hostess was delighted with feigned delight, but in her thoughts she was very angry because she did not expect that anyone would have thought that her plan would be interrupted by Podu Young Cheon himself. After this, the woman asked in surprise who the second person was who was told about the inheritance, to which the red-haired guy replied that this was the heir to the fortune, which made both the hostess and the third suspect surprised. And the third guy decided to introduce himself that his name was also Ho Cheon. The boy approached the woman and showed her his father's real will, and asked her to take the paper away. The owner took the document and became furious and started screaming at everyone around, saying that this was impossible, and that this was the first time she had seen this guy and it couldn't be that he was the son of the deceased. Continuing to scream, she said that they don't even know if this is really the elder's son and that this will may also be a fake. But the commandant denied this information, saying that they had already confirmed the authenticity of this information, and that if the owner does not agree with this decision, then this can only mean that she does not agree with the decision of the authorities, and calls it and the authority of the city into question. After these words, the woman got scared and said that she didn't mean it. And so the heir asked to listen to his story, because he understood how sudden it was and how difficult it was to understand. And he began to tell how it all happened, how his mother was his father's servant, how his mother died and how he moved to another city, and after that he accidentally ended up in this city and found out about his father. Which greatly touched the third suspect and angered the owner. Continuing, the heir said that he wanted to ask for a favor, because since he doesn't understand business at all, he's not at all sure that he can cope with everything that his father left, so he asked the hostess for help. And the guy only had in his mind that a rat, once trapped, would be ready to attack even a cat, and it would be much better if the suspects sided with him. After which Cheon asked if they would help him, clarifying that the duties would remain the same. And reflecting, he realized that if he looked after them, it would be difficult for them to rebel against him, and if this did not work, then he would simply kick them out. To which the third suspect said in tears that he agreed. And the woman hesitantly agreed. Which made the heir very happy. It's very good that she correctly assessed the situation. And the guy was very grateful. And so both guys left the Scarlet Flower Chamber. The commandant praised his partner. And the second one took off his mask and it turned out to be a hero, and he said there was no need for gratitude and it was all for his benefit, and the fact that the red-haired guy also turned out to be a good actor. To which Cheon replied that he did it for his own benefit and that soon the owner's son would go to prison for life for tax evasion, violence and extortion. And the swordsman only said that he had better deal with the owner of Po, that she was too greedy, but now was not the best time, and suggested that he do this in about 6 months. To which the commandant said that the hero should simply keep his promise and deal with the illegal business. In response to this, the guy told him not to worry because he knew that the swordsman was an honest person. Which displeased the red-haired guy because he thought these were arrogant words. But Suryan just started smiling and didn't understand why he was saying that, and would he really die if he said thank you. However, the hero didn't care, and he said that if they were destined to see each other often now, then they should abandon all formalities, and because it seemed to him that they were about the same age, to which the commandant agreed and they both shook hands. And the next day, in the Muram Alliance, the heroes met with their father's friend and they began to discuss everything that happened. The old man was very surprised that his son was to blame. The elder. If this is true, then he will be punished by heaven itself, but thanks to the hero, everything was resolved and he was praised. He said that he didn't do anything, that the killer of the house committed suicide, and in the end he was never able to learn anything about demonic techniques. But Koyol said that it's okay and everything is fine, because it's not so easy to find out something about practitioners of demonic martial arts. In fact, the heroes hid the fact that Elder Ho was killed using the martial art of Hulvapo. What if he tells the truth and he has to explain how he knows what it is, and so he just smiled sweetly. The father's friend told the swordsman not to worry about the exam and that he would write an excellent cover letter for the guy and even give him an honorary award, and that everything would be fine even if he made a fuss at the interview, for which the hero thanked his uncle very much. After all, the guy understood that now the problem with the recommendation had been resolved and that he should now go to the chamber of the Scarlet Flower and finish what he started. And we are transported exactly to where the third suspect has put in order the warehouses of the hotel, bar, and store, which the elder used to handle, and that can only be done on paper, but everyone has security. And the reincarnated hero began to praise the worker, saying that everything was well organized, which made the man happy. But reflecting, the swordsman understood that it must be because the suspect was wandering. He knows how to quickly adapt, and that even while Elder Ho was alive, he took on a lot of dirty work as a guard, and in the future he will be useful. After this, Surin turned to the guard and asked if he could get him the elixir and strong yang energy. And that even if the energy is not strong and the efficiency is high, it doesn't matter if there is poison in them. To which the man replied that in that case he would find out about it at the tramp market because he knew a couple of people there. The swordsman was very surprised, because there should be an active trade in weapons on this market. After that, the guy decided to ask the suspect something else, asking him to give the contacts of a skilled blacksmith who knows how to keep secrets. The man was very surprised because he did not understand why he needed it. And the hero only said that he cannot tell everything, but since this is a risky activity, he must be able to keep secrets. What God said that he understood everything that he was asking around. And Surin walked with a smile, and that everything turned out much easier than he thought, and that it was very good. And after that, the work went into full swing, and the swordsman realized that his problem with money was resolved. True, he knows almost nothing about this world. But he learned martial art from Li Vu, and the fact that the blood demon sect was destroyed, but there should not have been anyone left who knows about it, but most likely the sect still did not cease to exist. After some time, the tired hero fell onto the futon and was approached by his friend, who decided to find out where he had been for the last few days. To which Suryung said that if he tells it anywhere, he will be in danger, which disappointed the guy with the staff. But Yonghu began to ask his friend what he was doing there for fun, and the hero just wanted to go to bed. But friend still forced Surin to wake up by asking him to look at what he had in his hands. It was some kind of paper that he took from the door on the street. However, the swordsman did not understand why he needed this. The hero began to read and realized that this was a vacancy for a new mentor at the Heavenly Dragon Academy, and that it had finally opened, and that it was time for him to prepare, for his friend asked him to read a little lower. And after that, the swordsman was completely shocked. He thought that this couldn't happen, and what kind of nonsense is this? That the students themselves vote and choose a mentor. We are shown the text of this vacancy, in which it is written that the vacancy of a mentor in the Sky Dragon Academy, candidates who have passed the initial verification, document verification, and practical exam will be hired as temporary mentors for months, and temporary mentors will be evaluated every month. The winner will be selected based on the final assessment and the number collected votes of the participants, and the winner becomes a permanent mentor at the Heavenly Dragon Academy. Surin sits drooping and doesn't understand how this is a temporary mentor for 3 months and whether he will have a permanent salary, and the guy thinks that they are all stingy, and the young man says that everything except this is described in detail. Oddly enough, the swordsman sits in bewilderment because he doesn't understand that he now needs to tiptoe around in front of the children in order to be respected and loved. And the friend says that he heard that they will choose only 5 and temporary mentors, although more than 100 candidates have already signed up and they are probably being watched, which makes the hero think too. Sorian asks his friend if the documents need to be submitted the day after tomorrow for an interview in 4 days, to which the guy with the staff says that it is so. And the swordsman began to think about his letter of recommendation, so there is no need to worry about the papers. Yes, the interview is still 4 days away, and thanks to the 18 strikes of the triumph of the outcasts, he will not have any problems with martial arts. And it would be good to raise the trampling laws of the heavenly heaven of spiritual art to the second level. Johann says that whether it's martial arts or interviews, nothing can be changed in a couple of days. But they will need to approach the EU with a strategic explosive approach from the other side. And the hero considered it suspicious, which upset his partner. The guy with the spear says that if they didn't talk about something, then in his opinion he needs other preparation because he immediately thought about it when they met and what they need to prepare. The swordsman was frightened by such a reaction from his partner and did not understand what he was even talking about or why he took him by the hand and was dragging him somewhere. And Johann replied that he would understand when they came. And then some time passed and the day came for the interview for the mentors at the Heavenly Dragon Academy. A lot of people came and they were full of rags, even after half of them were eliminated while checking documents. There are 2 people standing on the roof of the academy, 1 man, 1 girl, and discussing the fact that compared to the past, the reputation of the Heavenly Dragon Academy is no longer so glorious, and still there are only those who want to be at the top. This is a little strange. And the woman answers that she will have to disperse all the mentors who talk a lot but do not know how to fight. After all, it is through the art of combat that the most worthy people can be elected and that a new Heavenly Emperor will appear this year. The guy turned out to be the senior student of the Heavenly Dragon Academy, Tak Kojin, and he has a dream of returning the Heavenly Dragon Academy to its former glory. And after that, the students began to let the candidates in. The white-haired guy decided to ask his partner if there was anyone useful among them, to which the girl replied that yes, a lot of people came, but among them one stood out, which made her cheeks turn red. Tak looked around until he didn't understand what was wrong with her friend, and was there really a master among them? And he saw that the girl was looking at the hero and his friend as they walked through the entrance and were watching for some reason, and the picture immediately began to bloom with blue flowers. And the guys just discussed among themselves that it was a strange preparation to just put on good clothes, to which the Johann replied that that was enough. They continued to walk across the square and the students looked at them and went crazy, literally. They admired the beauty of these 2 guys. The hero was praised for his very beautiful eyes, the guy with the spear was praised for his height. Well, the swordsman just became embarrassed and began to say that they were acting as if something special had happened, but the friend only said that there was no need to be shy and that the students were happy to see him and he should feel the same. But the hero replied that he couldn't be happy when he was so embarrassed because you made his brother laugh. Surin was walking and he was annoyed inside that they were looking at him like that and discussing him like that, and is his face really so beautiful, but he was glad that at least they definitely attracted attention. But he just doesn't understand how it will affect the interview. Young-hoo says that this is more than he thinks and this is the best way to please the students. They really were delighted. But their conversation is interrupted by a girl from the roof who screamed at the top of her voice that they were accepted. And Tak stood nearby and was in shock and asked her friend to look at him. The guys stood in bewilderment and did not understand who was shouting what happened, and the girl continued to shout that they were accepted by the authorities of the student council without questioning, but the student covered his friend's mouth and asked if she had gone crazy. This girl's name was Tan Soso. She is the assistant of the senior student Heavenly Dragon Academy. The candidates all began to discuss what had just happened and whether there really was someone screaming on the roof. But the guys decided not to pay attention to it and walked further along the alley, and the students argued among themselves. I don't understand what the problem is with accepting them right away. And so we are taken to the interviews themselves, where friends are standing and waiting for their turn, and they understand that very soon they will be there because there are 3 people left before their turn. And Johann meets an old friend of that same plump guy from the establishment where he shouted a lot. And he called him a fat guy from the permanent yard. He got very angry. Puckliash began to say that his body was a cold, powerful weapon and immediately received a blow to the face. A boot flew at him and he asked in a rage what kind of bastard did this, and they started throwing various objects at him, asking why he was arguing with innocent people and let him not interfere with the mentor and that the interview was a failure. And the guy with the spear asks the month-old. Now he understands why it was necessary to dress up like that in order to make a good impression, even constantly on the spot, and that children are strange these days, and the Suryan stood in a stupor, but the students did not stop and continued to insult the fat man. But the next moment they ordered to stop. It turned out to be some stately long-haired man who said that from now on everyone who makes noise will be punished, which threw the guys into a stupor. It turned out to be an elderly man who said that the heroes, this also applies if they make noise and he doesn't care. They are here for an interview or not, he will kick them out. To which Johan, with a sweet face, says that they didn't do anything, they just stood there when this chubby guy attacked them. But before he had time to finish, the grandfather said that if the fat man's interview was over, why is he still here? He needs to immediately leave the territory. The chubby man fell into a stupor, and the one who told him to get out or be carried out by force. And after that, he ran away at high speed. After this, the elder orders the guys to leave too, but they say that they didn't even pass the interview, so they can't leave. And the students gathered around asked the grandfather not to kick them out and that they had not done anything wrong, that the guys would no longer make noise and that he would forgive them this time. The elderly man thought about it and began to leave. However, she turned around and saw the sweetest faces of the guys and said that they should wait their turn only quietly, but that they heard gratitude with huge eyes. The guys turned around and began to stand quietly and think about what? Can they really win people over to their side just with their appearance? And Johan says that he thought that they would be kicked out right away and this is a big relief? The swordsman was amazed because for him it was so exciting and so new and that it was very cool to be beautiful and he already blossomed. The hero continued to smile, and the guy with the spear said that of course he wanted him to understand what he looked like, but not to stoop to that, and Surin decided to ask who he was, to which his friend replied that it was the elder who was responsible for the students, as he was told. The swordsman thought and began to look at this kid with great suspicion, but the guy did not answer that he was here for the first time. How could he even know him? But in his thoughts he understood that he was sure that he did not know him, but for some reason he seemed very familiar. And after that the guys were called for an interview. And they gladly went there. The heroes walked past the mentor and noticed a suspicious look and the elder said that he thought he had seen this guy somewhere, but where did he meet him? He didn't understand.